He thought vows would be shelter. They became paperwork for his silence. He didn't lose a wife. He reclaimed a life. Marriage didn't protect him from loneliness. It packaged it. Years later alone, quiet, steady, no bitterness, no breakage, just freedom, and a man who no longer apologizes for choosing peace. Here's what it took to get there. Together, but unseen. He used to think marriage meant safety, security, belonging. But years have a way of sanding off edges. The home became a house. The warmth became routine. The laughter turned into logistics. Did you pay the bill? What time is the appointment? Can you pick up the thing? Little checklists were used to live. He was still there, on time, on task, doing the right thing because that's what men do. Yet somewhere between the school calendar and the leaky sink, he turned into background noise. Not a villain, not a victim, just a steady hum like the refrigerator in the kitchen, always on, rarely noticed. In the beginning, her hand would linger on his shoulder when she passed. Now it taps twice, a signal, not a touch. In the beginning, "How was your day?" opened a window. Now it opens a report. He sits across from her at dinner. Forks click. Phones glow. They talk about the day as if it were a shipment to be tracked. ETA. Deliverables. Exceptions. He still pays, repairs, and remembers. He still chooses us. In 1,000 small ways no one tallies. He still shows up, even when showing up means carrying silence the size of a room. The strange part? She didn't stop loving him. She just stopped noticing him. Not out of cruelty, out of speed, out of tired, out of that slow domestic gravity that pulls two people into parallel lives under the same roof. He tells a joke he once told to make her laugh. It drifts over the table and falls flat, not because it wasn't funny, but because no one was listening when it landed. He pockets the joke like a coin no store will take. Next time, he'll pay with quiet. He used to walk in the door and feel chosen. Now he walks in and feels assigned. Driver, fixer, payer, planner, roles that keep the machine running, while the man inside them disappears. He learns the tiny negotiations of modern marriage. Don't say this. Don't ask that. Don't bring it up tonight. He calls it peace. But peace that's purchased by erasing yourself is just polite distance. At night, she scrolls. He stares at the ceiling and reads the cracks like a map. He's not angry. He's not even jealous. He's trying to remember the last time someone looked at him like a man, not a system. Birthdays become photos. Anniversaries become reservations. Even apologies become statements of work. We'll do better. We should prioritize. End footnote. Let's schedule a date night. And the heart, hearing corporate language in a sacred place, steps back another inch. He drives a long way home sometimes. Not because he hates the house. Because the car is the only space where nothing is required of him but breath. 10 extra minutes in the driveway. Keys in hand. Radio off. Just the relief of not being measured. He doesn't blame her. Life is heavy. Bills stack. Bodies tire. Two people can be good and still go blind to each other. But honesty arrives quietly one evening while he washes a single plate at a double sink. It's not a shout. It's a sentence that lands in his chest with the weight of a simple, terrible truth. I'm more alone married than I ever was single. Years of fixing. Men don't quit first. They try harder. So he did what good men do. He rolled up his sleeves and went to work. Counseling, he booked it. Tuesdays at 6. Left work early. Saturday on a couch that smelled like lavender and past confessions. Said things out loud that took years to find words for. I feel unseen. I miss you. I don't want to fight. I want us. She nodded. He nodded. They both wanted better. But wanting isn't wiring. Date nights, he planned them. Reservations. Her favorite place. Her favorite wine. He told himself, we just need time. But time became a meeting. A nice meal with careful words and chore charts dressed up as intimacy. They smiled for a photo, posted it, went home, and slept back to back. He read the books, dog-eared pages, underlined sentences that felt like instructions to a locked door. He learned the acronyms, the scripts, the I statements. He apologized with precision. He listened with patience. He swallowed needs with a glass of water and called it maturity. He stopped bringing up the hard things, because the hard things brought harder nights. He stopped asking for touch, because asking made touch feel like charity. He stopped naming the distance, because naming it made it real. He bought flowers on an ordinary Wednesday. She said, "You didn't have to." He knew. That was the point. He took more responsibility than was his. Maybe I'm too much. Maybe I'm not enough. Then, he wore both doubts like a coat in summer, heavy and invisible to everyone but him. Money wasn't the cost that broke him. It was self-tax, the interest on pretending, the late fees on silence, the overdraft of affection that never cleared. He learned new tactics. Lower the volume, shorten the sentences, offer solutions. Stop offering solutions. Give space. Give more space. Give up the parts of you that make her tense, until the parts left couldn't carry you anymore. They tried resets. Weekend away, phones in a drawer, walks at sunset where the sky did all the talking. For a moment it felt like before. Then Monday returned, and with it, gravity. He started to notice patterns more than promises. How sorry and same-day delivery often arrived together. How "we'll do better" sounded sincere, and then disappeared in the laundry with the missing socks. One night, he stayed late in the garage, fixing a hinge that didn't squeak loud enough to matter. He realized he'd been doing the same with the marriage, tightening tiny screws around a door no one planned to walk through. People say relationships take work. True, but work only works if the other person wants the same future you do. He didn't resent her. He didn't resent himself. He resented the math. 2 decent people, plus years of effort, should equal closeness. Instead, it equaled competence. They ran the home like a well-oiled machine, and machines don't hug back. On their last counseling session, the therapist asked, "What would feeling loved look like this week?" He said, "Not being managed." She said, "Not being disappointed." The room fell quiet. 2 truths, 1 fork in the road. Driving home, he finally named what he'd been circling for months. This isn't broken. It's expired. Not rotten. Not ruined. Just past the date where effort still transforms. And when trying becomes the problem, stopping isn't quitting. It's honesty, which is why, when the papers eventually came, what arrived with them wasn't drama. It was relief. A silence without accusation. A space that didn't require performance. But that is the next part of the story. After the papers, he braced for heartbreak, for nights with the light on, for the kind of silence that stares back. But the first thing that arrived wasn't pain. It was air. He made 1 cup of coffee, 1 plate, 1 seat at the small table by the window. Steam rose. Sunlight cut a line across the floor, and for the first time in a long time, he tasted morning, not obligation. He took the ring off like a man removing armor after a war that never had a victory parade. No ceremony, just a small circle of gold and a larger circle of skin learning how to breathe again. He changed the name on the mailbox, opened an empty drawer, hung his jacket on a hook that used to hold someone else's purse. Tiny edits that felt like reclaiming a language. The phone was quiet. No check-ins. No, where are you? No, can you swing by? Silence used to feel like punishment. Now it felt like permission. He expected the tears to hunt him. They didn't. They visited, polite, brief, and left when acknowledged. Grief, it turns out, doesn't always arrive as a storm. Sometimes it's a weather pattern that moves through, rains gently, and waters things that need to grow. He walked through rooms that held old arguments in their corners like dust, opened a window, let them out. He rearranged furniture, not for style, for flow. He needed a space where his shoulders didn't rise when he crossed the threshold. He made a list titled, "Keep, Donate, Release." A sweater he never liked. A photo that told a story that wasn't true anymore. A mug with a hairline crack that cut his lip last winter. Letting go is a skill. He practiced. Friends asked, "Are you lonely?" He told them the truth. This isn't loneliness. This is space. Loneliness is hunger for people. Space is hunger for yourself. He was finally feeding the second one. He slept through the night. Woke without the weight of negotiation already on his chest. No mental spreadsheets. No invisible meetings. Just a body remembering what rest feels like when it isn't bargaining for it. Money, too, found clarity. No silent taxes for peace. No purchases made to avoid a conversation. Numbers became honest again, blunt, simple, manageable. He missed some things. The warmth of a body on the couch, the shorthand of inside jokes. But he did not miss being managed. He did not miss shrinking to fit a room. He did not miss translating himself into a version that wouldn't cause a meeting later. He started making small promises, only ones he could keep to himself. 10 pages before bed. A walk after dinner. Call an old friend on Sundays. Play the guitar, even if it sounds like a man learning to speak with his hands. The apartment stayed neat without arguments about neatness. Dishes done because he likes the sink empty, not because someone is measuring his worth by it. Candles lit because he enjoys the scent, not because atmosphere must be proven. On a Tuesday, he laughed out loud alone. Not at a show, at a thought. It startled him, the sound of unperformed joy. He wasn't anti-love. He wasn't anti-woman. He was pro-peace, pro-honesty, pro-living at full height after years of ducking under low beams. And when guilt came, because it does, it found him grounded. He let it sit, let it speak, then let it leave. That's the gift of space. Feelings pass through without taking ownership of the house. People imagine divorce as a cliff. For him, it was a shoreline. The tide went out, and there he was, footprints fresh, horizon open, the solid ground of himself underfoot. What he felt most, strangely, wasn't triumph. It was relief. Not the wild kind, the quiet kind that lives in your chest and straightens your spine. He looked around his small, honest life and realized he didn't start over. He started true. Loneliness versus solitude. At first, the empty chair felt like a verdict. Proof that something was missing. Proof that he had failed. But days have a way of teaching what words can't tavern. He started to notice patterns, tiny tells, moments that separated ache from peace. Loneliness sounded like this. Turn on the television so the room won't hear you breathing. Scroll at midnight hoping a blue dot will save you. Eat fast. Sleep light. Wake up already tired of your own head. Solitude sounded different. Television off because the quiet is kind. Phone face down because the thought you're having is better. Eat slow. Walk after dinner. Sleep like someone who trusts the morning. Loneliness begged for rescue. Solitude offered a mirror. In one, you chase noise. In the other, you hear your name. On a Saturday, he tried an experiment. No plans. No errands. No should. Just a long morning with a book and coffee that went cold because the paragraph was worth it. He looked up 2 hours later and realized he hadn't reached for distraction once. He cooked for one. Not leftovers. A real meal. Knife on cutting board. Garlic in the pan. Music low. He plated it well, not for a photo, for respect. Loneliness eats, standing at the sink. Solitude sets the table. He went to a movie alone. Bought the seat he wanted, middle, aisle. Laughed when it was funny. Cried when it was honest. Walked out without translating the experience for anyone else. That too was new. Having a life that didn't require a witness to be real. Friends worried. Are you isolating? Verkistung. He checked the list. Calls made. Gimtweiss. Dinner with an old friend on Thursday. Isolation hides. Solitude chooses. There were hard moments. Rainy Sundays. The first holiday. An evening when the power went out and memory walked in with a box of old scenes. He let them play. Let them pass. He learned that feelings are like weather. If you don't build a house in the storm, you won't live in the storm. He wrote 2 columns in a notebook. Loneliness. I feel smaller with time. I want any company. I avoid mirrors. I bargain with myself. Solitude. I feel clearer with time. I want the right company. I face the mirror, gently. I keep promises to myself. He started keeping tiny promises that made the second column true. 10 push-ups after brushing his teeth. 1 page of journaling before the phone. A walk whenever his thoughts got loud. Call the brother he missed. Pet the neighbor's dog. Light the candle anyway. He noticed how the world labels men like him. Lonely. Bitter. Stuck. But labels are lazy. He wasn't against love. He was against disappearing to get it. He learned the sentence that guards his door. I will not trade myself for company. Simple. Costly. Worth it. And something softer grew inside the boundaries. A steady respect for his own time. A right-sized appetite for attention. A quiet delight in unshared moments, the kind that don't photograph well, but heal anyway. One evening, he sat on the porch while the sky went from gold to ink. No music, no words, just the sound of a world that doesn't need him to perform. He felt it then, not a rush, but a settling. I'm not missing out, I'm arriving. That's the difference no one taught him. Loneliness is being with yourself and wanting to escape. Solitude is being with yourself and being glad you stayed. And from that soil, something practical begins to grow. Not theory, not slogans. Autonomy, the kind that doesn't argue or ask permission. The kind that lets a man live his life in his own language. Which brings us to the next chapter. Autonomy. Freedom didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived with a calendar. Squares that used to be full of other people's plans went white. And in that white space, he saw something he hadn't seen in years. Choices. He set 3 simple rules. Rule 1. Time belongs to me first. Mornings became quiet territory. No news until he'd heard from himself. Coffee. 10 pages. A short walk before the world woke up enough to ask for him. He stopped sprinting to inboxes like a fireman. If it wasn't burning, it could wait. He learned that most emergencies dissolve. When you don't feed them, you'll panic. Rule 2. Money tells the truth. He looked at his accounts without flinching. No peace payments. No guilt gifts. No purchases designed to keep the night from arguing. He wrote 3 columns. Needs, wants, numbing. He cut the 3rd one in half and felt richer by the end of the week. Autonomy, it turns out, is less about income than outflow. Stop leaking yourself and the bucket fills. Rule 3. Space is sacred. He arranged his home for how he actually lives. Books within reach. Bench by the door for the shoes he wears, not the shoes he wishes he wore. Kitchen tools he uses, the rest donated. A chair by the window that fits his back. And his thoughts. He bought 1 good lamp. Light where he reads, not where someone told him it should look nice. He practiced saying no, like a craftsman. Clean cuts, no jagged edges. No to weekend chaos he'd pay for all week. No to favors that dressed up as friendship, but felt like extraction. No to conversations that required him to disappear to keep the peace. He found a better word than excuse. Boundary. He noticed how life got quieter when he stopped narrating himself. Not daily reports. No pre-approvals. No emotional customs office stamping every feeling allowed or denied. He could go to the gym at 7 or at 11. He could eat eggs for dinner and call it good. He could change plans because the sky looked like it was worth watching. No one needed a memo. No one kept score. He made office hours for the world. Texts answered twice a day. Calls returned after his work, not before. If it could be an email, it became one. If it could be silence, better. He created small, repeatable anchors. Laundry every Friday morning. Groceries on the way back from the park. Bills on the 1st. Budget on the 15th. Walk after dinner. Guitar on Sundays. Order turned effort into ease. Ease turned spare energy into attention. Attention turned life from getting through into being in. He kept one promise that changed everything. No self-betrayal for approval. If a plan cost him his integrity, his sleep, or his clarity, it was too expensive. He learned to leave early, say less, and mean more. And the world didn't collapse. Friends adjusted. Work respected the output. His body stopped bracing. Even his face looked different, like someone had opened a window inside. Autonomy didn't make him hard. It made him honest. He wasn't difficult. He was defined. He wasn't unavailable. He was unavailable for what emptied him. One night, a thought arrived as steady as breath. I don't need permission to be myself. No anger in it. No victory dance. Just a man standing at full height in a life he can carry. From here, something else becomes possible. Not survival, not stubbornness. Return. To interests. To brotherhood. To the man he parked on the side of the road years ago when duty took the wheel. And that takes us to the next chapter. Finding himself again. Autonomy opened the door. What walked through was him. He started small. Not a reinvention. A réunion. A dusty guitar from the back of a closet. New strings. Old chords. Fingers clumsy at first, then honest. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was trying to hear himself. On Saturdays, he built things. A shelf that actually fit the books he owned. a small bench for the porch, a drawer that used to stick and now slides like a thought with room to move. Craft didn't ask for applause. It offered proof. I can make the world steadier with my hands. He cooked like a man who respected his future. Protein on the plate, color from the earth, enough salt to taste, not to forget. Dinner wasn't performance. It was maintenance, the dignified kind. He gave sleep a chance to do its job. Screens away, curtains soft, bedtime not as punishment, but as a promise. Tomorrow deserves a rested man. He read again. Not articles designed to outrage. Books that required a slow mind. History. Memoir. A novel that lingered like a conversation with someone wise. He underlined sentences that felt like handrails. He journaled a page or two. Not poetry. Not perfection. Just the truth. Told quietly enough to hear it. Some entries were a list of what he did. Some were a list of what he didn't. Both mattered. He rebuilt brotherhood. Breakfast with the friend who never kept score. A call to his brother on the drive home, not to fix anything, just to laugh like they used to. A walk with a neighbor who knew about engines and grief. Men don't always say much, but standing shoulder to shoulder, looking at the same horizon, they say enough. He served carefully, fixed the widow's porch step, paid for a young man's tools, mentored without sermons, service without self-erasure. Give what you can lift, and still carry yourself home. On Sundays, he sat with quiet that had a name. Call it prayer. Call it presence. Call it the stillness where a man knows which voice is his. He didn't bargain with God, didn't beg for rewinds. He said, "Thank you for the breath. Help me spend it well." That was enough. He made a list on an index card and taped it inside a cabinet door. North Stars. Truth over harmony. Pace over pressure. Craft over noise. Brotherhood over crowd. Steward the body. Protect the morning. Never trade self-respect for access. When the old patterns knocked, he checked the card. If a plan required him to rush, pretend, or shrink, he let it pass. If it asked for patience, presence, or skill, he leaned in. He cleaned the house the way you clean a lens. Not for guests, for clarity. One good chair by the window. One table that fits a meal and a map. One hook for the keys that take him places he actually wants to go. He tried new things at a human pace. A class on woodworking. A day hike that ended with sore legs and a quiet pride. A small motorcycle rebuild. Not for speed, for focus. He wasn't chasing adrenaline. He was courting attention. When dating crossed his mind, he wrote one sentence at the top of a page. First, become a man you enjoy being with. Then he listed what that meant. Keep the morning. Keep the gym. Keep the budget honest. Keep the friendships alive. If romance fit inside that life, respectfully maybe. If it required dismantling the pillars, no. He stopped auditioning. At work. With friends. Online. He spoke in full sentences and let silence do its part. He didn't need a chorus to make his song real. Regret tried. It always does. It showed up with highlight reels and what-ifs. He answered with what is. He was healthier. Calmer. Kinder to waiters and to himself. More useful to people who actually needed him. Less available to dynamics that used him. He noticed how dignity changes posture. Shoulders down. Yav soft. Eyes that meet the world without apology. This is what happens when a man returns to himself. He stops bracing for impact and starts building for distance. He made peace with the unglamorous. Laundry folded right after the dryer. Oil changed on schedule. Recept sabed. Grocery planned. Systems so small they don't get likes, and so strong they hold a life. He laughed more, not louder. The kind of laugh that doesn't ask permission. Sometimes alone in the kitchen when a good memory visited and didn't hurt anymore. And when people asked, "Are you happy?" he didn't reach for fireworks. He said, "I'm clear." Clarity, he found, contains a quiet kind of joy, the kind that doesn't need proof. This is why some men don't regret being alone after divorce. Not because love is worthless, because self-loss is. From here, the reasons become simple, practical, grounded, and earned. Which brings us to the next chapter. Why he doesn't regret it at all. He doesn't regret being alone. People ask him, "Don't you miss companionship? Don't you want someone to grow old with? Aren't you afraid of being alone?" He smiles. Because they don't understand. He's not afraid of being alone. He's afraid of being misunderstood, overruled, reduced. He doesn't hate women. He doesn't hate love. He just won't enter a space where he has to trade himself to be accepted again. Being alone didn't steal his happiness. It returned it. If you're a man over Hannah Kant, and you just lost your marriage, listen closely. You didn't lose everything. You didn't fail. You didn't waste your time. You grew. You learned. You gave love the best you knew how. And now, you're not starting over. You're starting right. With more clarity, more boundaries, more self-worth. You may be alone, but you're not abandoned. You're standing on ground you built. And that is not regret. That's redemption.